The Chicago Bulls are about as far away from an NBA championship as you could possibly be. Welcome in or welcome back. Unfortunately, we're talking about the Chicago Bulls, and I say unfortunately because at its core, as a roster, they have so many players that I very much do enjoy, but I don't think that they are ever going to mesh and actually be a cohesive team. I think the Chicago Bulls are at just a weird crossroad in their franchise's history. They are holding on to some remnants of a past of that 2021 season where it looked like they were going to take the league by storm with Lonzo Ball at the helm and DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. But now that Lonzo Ball is coming back, but we don't know what he could possibly be because of the injury history, and DeMar DeRozan has left, and they have already gone on record saying that they are trying to, or at least at the minimum, taking calls for Zach LaVine. We're kind of stuck in the middle in Chicago. If it were me, if I were calling the shots, I would want to do a complete 100% youth movement rebuild here. I wouldn't want any past remnants of this old Chicago tenure. I would start 100% from scratch, essentially. Now, I do realize that that is a little bit easier said than done. Zach LaVine makes a lot of money, so it's kind of hard to get off of his contract, especially because he doesn't bring anything to the defensive end. He's very much in the Bradley Beal stage of his career where he's only viewed as a bucket getter, a very good bucket getter at that, but I'm not sure how actually valuable that is when you don't bring anything else to the table. And with Nikola Vucevic, I think that it's not impossible to get off of that contract, but where he isn't so efficient at stretching the defense and being able to hit the three from a consistent range, and while he isn't this dominant inside scorer like he once was, I think that it is still difficult to get off of his contract, but I think it's doable. You are going to have to answer some questions eventually. I'm not sure what Torrey Craig's future for this team is. I don't think that he meshes up as far as the timeline goes. And even the people that do fit the timeline, like a Jalen Smith that you picked up, he had a pretty underwhelming year in Indiana. So I'm not sure if that's ever going to turn into anything. The only real thing that I think that I really enjoyed from an acquisition standpoint was Kenny Lofton Jr. And while I think that he's a forever G League guy, at bare minimum, people are going to want to watch him. Patrick Williams is a little bit concerning to me. He's had some injury health, and that's not necessarily his fault. But when he came into the league, he was very much viewed as the next Kawhi Leonard. And even while he was healthy, while there were spurts of defensive acumen that I do believe could translate and still translate once he is fully healthy, I'm not sure that his offensive game is ever going to develop to the point where I do look at him and go, yes, that is the next successor to Kawhi Leonard. And if you're the Chicago Bulls after you spent the number 4 overall pick on him a couple years ago, I'm not sure that he is at the place where you want him to be. And one of the last bad things that I'm going to talk about, I promise, is the aforementioned Lonzo Ball. Need to go on record here. I am one of the biggest fans of Lonzo Ball that there is. I really do mean that. I love his game. I love his defensive ability. And in that season that we were talking about with him and Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, I was fully convinced that they were going to win the East that year because that was such a perfectly run offense through Lonzo Ball. And while I want to believe that that is going to be the case again, while I think that he could be this lead guard and be able to run an offense like that again and probably lead the league in assists, I just don't think that there is enough evidence for me to believe that he's going to stay healthy enough to achieve that. And if he can't stay healthy, there's a real avenue where the Bulls try to trade him or at worst, cut him and move on. Two good things now. I think that Matas Buzelis was a really good pick. I was socially aware of him coming into the draft, his ability to be that bigger guard, forward-esque, do-it-all kind of player. I just didn't think it was going to translate that well. I wasn't super familiar with his game, but I started watching Summer League and was quickly convinced that I was wrong and that he could do everything on a basketball court. He showed amazing understanding of his position on the floor. His ability to read the floor was good. His defensive effort was really inspiring to me as well, only because who tries hard on defense in the Summer League? So I think that even though it was questioned at the time of the draft, I think that they actually do have a very good piece in that pickup of Buzelis. And then lastly, someone who I think should be the cornerstone of any potential rebuild of the Chicago Bulls, Kobe White, I think could be an absolute superstar. I think that he can actually be an all-star this year. He averaged about 20 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds last year and shot 37% from 3. I don't see any reason why there needs to be a scenario where his shot volume and his shot distribution doesn't go up to where he could average that 25-27 a game. And I think because of the roster that was constructed last year, where he had to take on the responsibility of being that lead guard, that lead playmaker, I think that his assist numbers could go up too. I think there's a real scenario where he could potentially average, even on a bad basketball team like the Chicago Bulls are going to be, I think that he could really average like 25 and 9 a game. And I think that that's going to, at minimum, put him in all-star conversations and potentially a third-team All-NBA. All of that being said, I do think that the Chicago Bulls are going to be a very bad basketball team, and we need to brace ourselves for the full-on rebuild that is potentially coming. And one last thing, I saved it for the end here only because I know that it's a soapbox. Some of you may know that I am a WVU fan, and because of that, and because of my fervent love for players coming from WVU, two of my favorite players in the league are Deuce McBride from the Knicks and Javon Carter from the Bulls. Now, what I don't want to do is pretend like I think Javon Carter could average 30 and 15 a night if you just gave him the rock. What I think Javon Carter is a three-point shooting defensive menace who needs to be on the floor more than he was last year. Do you know that last year with Milwaukee, before he came to the Chicago Bulls, he was shooting 42% from three? And yes, I am fully aware that that was only on 3 or 4 attempts a game, but don't you think, just logically for a second, don't you think that if you upped his attempts to 8 or 10 a game, that would translate the exact same way? Maybe he dips a little, but even at that point, he's still shooting about 39% from three. And that's literally not even his calling card. That's literally never been his calling card. His calling card has been the defensive acumen that he brings to a team. When he was playing for the Milwaukee Bucks, when he was in a backcourt specifically with Drew Holiday, he had the highest defensive efficiency rating in the entire league. He was the toughest guard. When Javon Carter was guarding someone with the ball, they shot a career low field goal percentage, and that is an absolute fact. So it blows my mind how last year we got about 8 minutes a game of Javon Carter, if he even played at all. Again, I'm not saying that I think Javon Carter, especially at this stage in his career, could be a guy that leads the league in scoring or leads the league in assist. But if you are going to have such a defensive asset on your team and you're just going to sit him, I think that you should just trade him somewhere else. I know that he wants to be in Chicago. He's a Chicago kid, and I know that he's making a lot of money doing so. It just doesn't make any sense. Play the man or get him out of town. But that's all for my soapbox today. What do you think of the Chicago Bulls? Do you think they're going to get rid of Zach LaVine? Let me know down in the comments below. Check the link tree while you're at it. Join the Discord. Be kind. Tell somebody you love them. And I'll see you tomorrow.